Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast, a brand new season for you. Lots of excitement here. John is here with me just like every season, and we're ready to get going on this season, aren't we, John?
That's right. It's the season premiere of the Mavpuckcast. We have a sponsor this season, Lawler's Custom Sportswear. They are the official apparel sponsor of the Mavpuckcast this season. I told Bridget, I said, write me out a little spiel for Lawler's being the sponsor of the podcast. So she comes back to me. She's got this like 500 word essay here, and I'm like, it's going to be like a fourth of the podcast if I go through that.
So much for our 20-minute podcast. If your Lawler's intro is 30 minutes.
Yeah, we've known Lawler's owner, Pat Lawler, for many, many years, 2 decades plus now. A great guy, really wonderful of him to sponsor the Mavpuckcast. We got some special deals going with the sponsorship. You can get a 10% discount on apparel at the lawlerscustom.com website. If you type in code MAVPUCK23, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that on your screen. We also currently, through October 9th, are having a special apparel sale that we are doing through Lawler's Custom. They're doing some custom designs that we designed right now, hoodies, t-shirts, long sleeve tees that you can get. Visit mavpuck.com/Lawlers for more information and a link to our store. Orders need to be in by midnight on October 9th, and then they will be available to pick up at Lawler's Custom Sportswear on 84th Street. After October 25th. 6 designs. If you're watching on YouTube, you will be seeing those images right now. And it's great to go through Lawler's because these are officially licensed UNO gear. So you get the O logo or the Bull logo, whichever we put on the design. So it's just been a great partnership so far. I will tell you the exclusives are not eligible for the discount since they are custom apparel. So you'll have to use that on all of the wonderful apparel that Lawler's has brought in for this season, including the gray jersey. Jason is wearing the authentic gray jersey that he procured at the auction last season. That's the Caden Bolson jersey, isn't it, Jason?
You are correct.
Yes, and Caden, unfortunately, Caden has transferred to Minnesota State Mankato, and we will talk about them a little bit at the end of the podcast. But Jason, let's jump right in to our annual tradition on this first episode is to do our picks where we think the NCHC teams will finish this season, what the order of the rankings are, how UNO will do in the conference. Who do you think is going to finish in last place? Who do you think is going to finish in 8th place this season, Jason?
I think the bottom of the NCHC has been the bottom of the NCHC for last few seasons. I don't see that changing. There's just really nothing new about this program that's going to get them out of the basement yet. Hopefully there's things on the horizon for them that they can kind of start this season using the season to dig out of. But Miami, Ohio for me is down there at the end.
Yeah, they've really been stuck in a rut the past several seasons. It's going to be interesting to see if Chris Bergeron gets that program turned around. I think they're one of those programs that it's going to be the type of situation where they just, they surprise us one season. They come out of the gate and they do well. It's just going to be one of those things where they happen to get the right mix of recruits and transfer players in there that make a difference. But yeah, I see them at the bottom of the conference as well, which is too bad because back in the early 2000s, that was a very successful program back in the old CCHA days when the conference alignments were a bit different than they are today.
So okay, right. We got the first agreement of the season here.
Yes, we got that. Was the easy. That's the easiest part of the season so far, Jason. Who do you see in 7th place in the conference this season?
Yeah, I think it gets really muddy here for a while. Like 2 through 7, there's a lot of teams that if things go wrong for them, they could quickly be in those 7 seeds, 6 seeds, things like that. I think if things go right, they're teams that have the pieces and stuff to to contend for a 2-3-4 spot. So it was really hard with this middle of the NCHC, and it has been for a few seasons here that way too. I'm gonna stick with Colorado College being in the 7th seed. I think they rely very heavily on the play of their goaltender, and there's a lot of question marks when you kind of move out from there for them, more so than some of the other teams that were there. So I'm putting there just strictly because I'm thinking that somewhere along the lines, a lack of scoring or a younger D-core ends up hurting them.
Yeah, they really depended on their talented goaltender last season, Caden Mbarico, terrific goaltender. But they were a little bit one-dimensional last season, like you said. It seemed like goaltending and defense were what kept them in games, and it'll be interesting to see if they become a more multi-dimensional team. And so I don't know what will happen, but I agree with you on your 7th place pick. I think that Colorado College will be there, but they could very easily be a few places higher. So it will be interesting to see. Jason and I are agreeing on everything right now, so I guess maybe we should have come up with a consensus conference pick at the beginning since this is going so smoothly. Jason, who do you like in 6th place in the NCHC this season? Who do you see landing at number 6? The media picked our beloved Mavericks in 6th place this season, but where do you see them at?
Yeah, and I believe if I remember right, they picked us 6th or 7th last year, and so I don't think that we can christen them as the experts necessarily. I think we're all kind of grasping here for what's going to happen. I think the surprise last season is that this is the spot we found North Dakota, and North Dakota rarely is in the bottom of a conference. Like back in the WCHA days, they were almost never down there. That's a perennial program. I think that they come back strong. I think they're probably a little upset with the fact that they were in that spot last year, so I can't put them in that spot again. For me, it kind of came down to two teams. I think that I put Omaha here, and I think that the reason why Omaha had such a good season last year is because goaltending overperformed and scoring came from people that we didn't expect scoring to come from. And those are just two things that are hard to expect to repeat. I think our goaltending should be pretty solid, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be as good as last year. And I think there's big question marks with scoring in the NCHC specifically. But a lot of our reliance is probably going to be on some of the incoming guys that are learning a new system, making new friends, adapting to a new place to live and things like that. And I think it's just going to, it's so tight in the NCHC that 1 or 2 games that bites you and you're 6th instead of 4th. So I'm putting UNO here in the 6th spot.
All right. So Jason agrees with the media pick. For me in 6th place, I am going with Minnesota Duluth. There were some question marks about Minnesota Duluth last season. I'll be interested to see if Scott Sandelin is able to rectify some of those issues with the team. So I'm seeing them in the bottom half of the conference. Pure guess on my part, as many loyal listeners know, first couple of seasons of the Mavpuckcast, Duluth was my annual pick to win the national championship every year. So I have them in the bottom half of the conference, which is hard to pick with a program that has typically been a fixture in the upper half. Jason, who do you like as your 5th place finisher in the NCHC this season?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Duluth because that is who I have. And when I was looking at it and thinking and like mapping out points and stuff, the ironic thing that came down to is that Duluth beat North Dakota for rankings on a on a tiebreaker, right? Like they had the same amount of points as North Dakota last year, and so I had them in the same spot. Like I had them tied with Omaha, the same number of points, and I'm like, I don't remember what the tiebreakers were, so I'm just going to assume that whatever it was, they're going to win the tiebreaker. So I can totally support. Like I could totally see Duluth down there if somehow Omaha ends up with that that tiebreaker and flip-flopping that. But I see those two teams as very competitive, very similar. I think Sandlin's for a long time has been known of like to get the most out of players, like and it's just it's his coaching style, it's his program, it's what he's built on. The guys that go there really want to play in Duluth, and they seem to really just get behind that team and grow and perform in that environment. And so I expect that more of the same will come from Duluth.
I like that pick there, Jason. So we're pretty close on those picks. Boy, I'll tell you what, third, fourth, and fifth were awfully difficult for me. In fifth place, I am going with the St. Cloud State Huskies this season. The reason that I'm going with them there, just because I'm a little bit unsure on their talent this season. You know, you look at some of the players who had become fixtures in that lineup over the past handful of seasons, guys like Kevin Fitzgerald, Yami Kranola, goaltender David Rennick. I see the Huskies as fifth in the conference this season. So our fourth place finisher, we're getting into the top half of the conference. Jason, who do you like in fourth place this season?
I really struggled with this one. I think this is another really close race between two teams. I actually put Western Michigan here. And I know that that's kind of the hot take this year because a lot of people are high on Western Michigan. I just like I look at the way they play, I look at the style of play, and there's something that we used to call like there used to be something called a poser team. And those were the teams that tried to play a style and were usually successful here and there, but they would struggle to kind of stick with it. Like Western Michigan tries to play this new style of system that's like a mix between a running gun and kind of more of a slodgy trap style. And it's like it gets confusing. And I think that if you look at their trajectory, it's not going necessarily up. It's kind of been fairly level to down to level to down. And I'm like, I just think this is the year that they might get a little cocky and might lose some games just out of sheer, unpreparedness or trying to do more than they should instead of just playing inside their system. And so I think they're good enough talent-wise to still be a top half of the NCHC. But I think that in close races, like things like this, I think they're going to miss out on those top three seeds by a couple points.
Yeah, they're always an interesting team. Pat Ferschweiler has gotten a lot out of the players that he's brought into Kalamazoo. They're a little bit of an enigma as well. 5 NHL draft picks on the team. Certainly the player that was talked about on social media a lot was getting Alex Bump this season on that roster. I will be interested to see where they finish. So Jason's got the Western Michigan Broncos in fourth place. I am going with our beloved UNO Mavericks finishing in the top half of the conference again this season. As many listeners and viewers of the Mavpuckcast know, I'm always optimistic on UNO's chances going into the season, much to the chagrin of Jason, by the way. But every once in a while, I get right on that pick. As you mentioned, there are a number of question marks. I had them right there with St. Cloud State, who I picked in fifth place. When you look at Coach Gabinet, Coach Noel Bernier and company, they've been able to get a lot out of the transfer portal players that they've gotten the last few years. Certainly, Jake Pavonka was a surprise for UNO, transferring from Notre Dame last season. So I'm really curious to see what defensemen like Dom Vidoli, who came here from Ohio State, and Noah Ellis, who transferred after just one season with UMass, are able to do for UNO. And of course, we're excited about a couple of the incoming freshmen. We only have 3 freshmen this season. Will Craig, a goaltender who came in, but Tanner Ludke from the Lincoln Stars is certainly the offensive juggernaut coming out of the USHL that fans are looking forward to seeing how he performs here at the collegiate level. And Charlie Lurie's the other forward coming in. And as you mentioned, it starts with goaltending. Simon Lakozzi's back in nets. He was a solid goaltender for us last season. And really, as you mentioned a few days ago when you and I were talking about this, I think the defensive core for UNO looks like it will be their strength. So I have UNO optimistically in fourth place this season. Jason, who do you have in third place in the conference race?
I went with St. Cloud here. I hear what you said earlier about there's a lot of question marks with what they're with what they're bringing in and stuff. I think it's I think they have a uniquely like one of the best home ice advantages in college hockey, in that they're one of the few teams that plays on the Olympic size sheet of ice. And I know coaches will always tell you it doesn't matter, it's still ice, it's still hockey, it's the same game, yada yada. I've heard all that stuff, right? But like as a player, as a coach, I can tell you it's everything's different, especially goaltending there. And I think that that's where they've been able to win close games. And they've been able to do that a lot because of their goaltenders outperforming the other goaltenders at home. And so I still see, and when I was looking at this going like, I really think these two teams are close. In this case, like I really had like four teams. I'm like, this might be separated by like 3 points total before the four teams. It just came down to like, I think they squeeze out some victories at home that other teams couldn't do. And I think that's why, I put them all the way up in 3. But like we've been saying in this whole middle of the pack, like it's all it takes is one injury. It takes one off weekend where your goaltenders or your defense or your forwards can't score. Those are the question marks we've had for UNO is, where does that scoring come from and stuff. And so one weekend in the NCHC, when you head up to St. Cloud and you can't seem to find goals on that wider ice, boom, just like that, you're 6 points behind St. Cloud. So that's kind of how I see it shaken out.
Absolutely. Coach Larson's going to have those guys ready to play. And as you said, it's tough to go into St. Cloud and get a win. They play tough there. So in third place, I have Western Michigan, who you mentioned before. Again, a team that I think is an enigma to both of us, but I respect Pat Ferschweiler a lot. He has done a great job with that program since taking over for Andy Murray. Again, they're always a ragtag bunch of players, a lot of upperclassmen on that roster. And when you get down to crunch time in the NCHC, I think that veteran leadership will make a difference. So again, I have them in 3. They could be, in my opinion, anywhere from third down to 6th place. You just never know. It's a flip of the coin when you get to the middle of the conference. That's why it's so hard to predict on a year-to-year basis. So Jason, we're getting close to the top here. Who do you have second place in the NCHC for the 2023-24 season?
Well, and if people are taking notes and keeping track, once I say this, they'll know who number 1 is. So I say we talk about them together, if that's okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So number 2, I have North Dakota. I mentioned this earlier, like when I was talking about where they were before. I think that they've got a chip on their shoulder. I think they're not used to being down at the bottom. I think they're going to play like a team that had an off year and wants to prove that it was just an off year. And when you look down their roster, all you see is NHL draft, NHL draft, NHL draft, NHL draft, and those are talented players. Like I don't care if it's 6th round, 7th round, whatever. Like if you're getting drafted by an NHL team, you have that at least glimmers of that next level talent. And there's just something about those storied programs like North Dakota that guys overperform, and it brings out the best of them. And North Dakota's problems in the past has been that they get so many of these draftees that they're there 1 year and gone the next kind of thing. And so consistency will be always a question with them, but I think this is the year they bounce back. And they're a tough force in a tough conference. And then there too, because Denver is Denver. And quite honestly, they lose Krona in net this year, but their defense has multiple top round draft picks. Like it might be the best defense in college hockey, let alone the NCHC. There's some real skill there. There's a lot of puck moving. They play a style of hockey that can be very difficult to defend. And so any question marks from an offensive perspective, a lot of times are just negated by the offensive ability of their defensemen and the style of play that they play. I think the biggest question is who steps in for Chrome, right? And so if whoever they end up with in net taking the majority of their starts there struggles, or ends up with a 2.5 GAA or something or higher, then I could see someone taking Denver off of that top stand. But honestly, until someone does, I'm not going to assume that it's going to happen. You got to prove to me that you can take Denver down.
It's hard to bet against the champs. Certainly, Coach Carl and his two talented assistants who were at Alaska Fairbanks for many years. Tavis McMillan and Dallas Ferguson have done a great job recruiting there. Have done a great job harnessing the talent that they have. Just to be different, I'm going to pick them in second this year. You mentioned them not having Magnus Krona. I think that may be a bigger issue than we think. Maybe not. We will see. It's hard to bet against North Dakota. It's hard to see them as being a team that's going to be down 2 seasons in a row. I think that's why they've been picked so high in various media polls and by various prognosticators online. There was a lot of talk during the offseason about them rebuilding their defensive core. But man, you look at the roster and you look at the forwards they have coming back this season. You look at guys like Jackson Blake and Reese Gaber, both very, very talented skaters for this team. We also have to consider Cam Berg, who was one of our talented forwards who transferred after last season to North Dakota, had always dreamed of playing for North Dakota. He's on that team, but I have them in first place this season, Jason. It will be interesting to see. But turning to our things you missed at Baxter Arena. We haven't even been to a game yet at Baxter Arena, and we're already doing the things you missed at Baxter Arena. Jason is regretting that he named this segment that, but we got to attend a preseason open house for the hockey program at Baxter Arena. It was a lot of fun as usual. I really enjoy these open houses. We got to see an inter-squad scrimmage, so we got to see one period, an overtime period, and then a shootout with the players. There were autographs. Some of the players were in the concourse at tables signing autographs. Some of the players were on the ice for a skate with the Mavs deal. Signing autographs, so you had to maneuver around if you were going to get all of the guys to sign your schedule posters or roster sheets that they had available. There was merchandise available. You had the UNO bookstore. You had Lawler's Custom Sportswear on hand. Jason, what did you think of the open house event? The most entertaining moment for me was my brother-in-law, Neil, trying to get skates on my 6-year-old nephew, Anson, who has never been on the ice to skate. But the sweet boy decided to give it a try. And after one lap, holding on to the boards around the ice, he's like, I never want to come back here. So that went very, very well. But it was funny as he was trying to get, and I'm just telling Anson, just stop in your skates to get them on. And Neil's just looking at me like this is the most frustrating thing ever. But what did you think about the event, Jason?
I think it's good. They've done this before with the skate with the team. And that's always, I think, something that especially the kids look forward to. It's just something unique. I know I've heard, at least like in years past before my time, that it was a youth only event. And I think it really does. Like for me, it's like, I mean, I'm on the ice all the time. I don't care. But it is kind of nice to see our kids and like your niece and nephews out there and kind of enjoying some time, with the hockey players when they look like hockey players, and not just, sitting down at a table and saying hi as they pass sheets kind of down the line and stuff. So, so I really like that. But, there's a lot of stuff new this season coming at Baxter Arena. So I'm sure part of this event was just getting the regulars, the season ticket holders, the people that come to a lot of games, kind of used to, there's going to be things that are different. Parking's different, entrances are different, ticketing is different, food options are different, and so a lot of those things just kind of making the introduction now so that you're not doing it at the first game of the season is a good idea for the club.
What did you think of the metal detectors? The metal detectors being the newest thing coming into the arena. When you come in the doors to the lobby at Baxter Arena this season, you will have to take your phone and your keys out of your pockets, hold them up over your head, and then walk in, assuming the buzzer doesn't. I don't know. I've only been through it once. I know it kind of reminds you of when you go through the scanners, the TSA scanners at the airport. I'll be interested to see on cold nights in January and February how exactly this works and what kind of line is going to be out the door at Baxter Arena.
I will say what I want our listeners to know going into this, because we're sitting here on a October 1st that is 90 some degrees, which is just like weird. So it's kind of odd talking about this, but in years past, with the way that they did an entry, is even though the gates weren't open yet, there was enough room between the lobby area at Baxter and the vestibule between the two doors that most people could get inside in some of the colder weather. And with where they placed everything and the amount of space that they need to make this happen the way that they've got it set up, we need two things. One, you need to be kind to the people who actually have been standing there in the vestibule and don't just leave the doors wide open and let the cold air in, because that's going to be, from a hockey rink perspective, I don't want that air in my arena. It changes the ice, and so be a fan and know that, but also just like be kind and courteous and realize that you might be prepared. You might be standing outside if you show up 20-30 minutes before the gates open or something. It's possible that you may need to be standing outside for a good 10 to 20 minutes, and so bundle up and be prepared. But it's the arena is just like, it just doesn't have the space for really something like this, so it's gonna be a process, and people just need to be level-headed and understand that this is the way it needs to happen, and just have patience and all be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Jason and I are certainly proponents of safety at large gatherings like sporting events. So in principle, neither of us are against this. I think logistically, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes early on, especially when you're talking about crowds for events like hockey. I haven't been to a concert or other sporting event at Baxter Arena since they instituted these things. So the open house was obviously a limited participant event, because you don't typically get 2,000 people at the or more at the arena for something like that. I'm with you on this. I don't know. I'm taking a wait and see approach. We'll see how it progresses this season. I'm sure if there are issues, Jason and I will definitely be.
When there are issues, it will be brought up on the podcast.
Yes, Jason and I will not shy away from talking about any issues with the metal detectors that happened this season. But once again, a great event, great to catch up with fans, great to chat with Coach Gabinette and Athletic Director Adrian Dowell at the event. It was a really nice way to kind of kick off the season. It's so weird not being able to pick up printed tickets anymore, Jason. They're just digital tickets on our phone. I was talking about that on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now this week, and there were a number of fans who missed those glossy ticket books that fans around college hockey used to get. Do you miss the printed tickets? I know you're You're a big tech guy, Jason. Do you miss the printed tickets at all, or are you happy with the?
Um, like I miss the nostalgia of having something, is what I would say. Like like you said, I'm a digital guy. I have a tendency, and this was a problem like way back when and stuff. It's like I would never lost a ticket, but I have had them like drop out of my pocket, and like I didn't like having to fumble around with them. So when like everything on my phone is a good thing for me personally. But I do miss having the like this season, this is what this is kind of that thing that kind of trips your memory, right? Like that thing of like this season was this, right? And I know people who have kept their ticket books from back then where they didn't even rip them out when we had the perforated ones and stuff, and they'd take the whole book and they'd scan the book, and I kind of miss that connection to fans. I think there's enough people out there that like having something that is specific to that season, and especially with season ticket holders that are specific to season ticket holders, where it's like our ticket's not the generic thing that you print off on a reel and it looks like everything else, and it's just your seat number and your section printed on a standard framed format kind of thing. Like the graphics that they did and the stuff that they like, the designs and stuff were really cool, and having you know a different look and feel to each season. And I think that there's some value, and I would encourage the university to try to find ways to bring that back in. We've talked a lot in prior podcasts about bringing value to season ticket holders, because these are the people who are buying tickets and not just waiting for you to do a buy one get one sale, or $5 off or $10 off or whatever kind of marketing promotions that they do throughout the season to try to hit those sellout numbers for UNO hockey. These are the guys that are your base. These are the ones that make it so that you can get there, because you don't get to selling out that arena on single game tickets if you don't have a good base for season tickets. And I think this is an opportunity for them to say, like, as a season ticket holder, here's something commemorative of the season, that only you get for being a season ticket holder. So I'd like to see them bring something like that back.
I completely agree. Bridget and I were some of those fans who would bring the entire ticket book to games and have them scan the tickets in the book so we could preserve the book. I have many totes in our basement of UNO hockey memorabilia, including every printed program that they sold going back to the beginning of this program, printed media guides, ticket books, etc. And it's a lot of fun to be able to go back and look at that. It also takes up a lot of room in our house, so some people aren't down with that, but someday the UNO library is going to get a great collection of UNO hockey memorabilia from us. So everybody will benefit from that at some point down the road. But like you, I kind of miss having that kind of commemorative thing, and maybe they can introduce something. I don't know what it is in the future, but we have a new piece of potential memorabilia for fans that was introduced this week on social media by the UNO athletic departments. We have new home jerseys, Jason, new white jerseys. They look very similar, and in fact, I think they're exactly the same as our previous white jerseys. Instead of saying Omaha in black letters on the front, as Jason is showing you, the bullhead, the Maverick Bull, is now back on the front of the jersey, back on the UNO home white jersey for the first time since the 2010-2011 season. Jason, what did you think of the jerseys? I heard some very interesting reaction by fans on social media. What do you think of the new home?
I want to know what you thought first, because I think this is more like, I'll give you my opinion, but this is more like your alley kind of thing than it is mine.
Yeah, Jason, it's not really more mine. Jason wants to know because we were talking about this via text, and he commented on it, and then I didn't. So I think he might have been worried that I had some opinion that like disagreed with him. I didn't necessarily have an opinion that disagreed. I was busy doing something else at that moment, so I never got back to it. There are some fans, I will say, who are disappointed that they didn't take the opportunity to completely kind of rethink the home jersey. Maybe add like a red stripe in there, or do something different with kind of the overall design, maybe something more modern or something. Um, UNO basically did what fans have been asking for. Fans have been saying we want to have the bullhead on the home jersey. So UNO gave us what we asked for, which was the bullhead on the home jersey, but the design is essentially the same. Harkens back to the original UNO hockey jersey, that red and white jersey um, that had the bullhead on it. I mean, what I think it looks great. I mean, I think it looks
I
good.
I
What do you?
agree. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely an improvement over the kind of the generic beer can jerseys that we had at home. What do you think of the jersey overall, Jason? Because you shared your thoughts with me via text. I know you have opinions on this.
I always
You
have an opinion.
absolutely, Jason, you're an NHL guy. You see a lot of different jerseys during the season. What do you think of the, like I said, better than the Omaha on the home jersey? I think it's appropriate for home games and on that home jersey to have the red Maverick bull. It's tradition. It goes back to the beginning of this program. I love seeing it on there. Looks great. But what did you think about the jersey?
I'm I'm with the fans. Like I really felt like the bowl needed to be, especially when they brought this out, right? When they brought these gray jerseys into the set. And I think that the fan reactions to that, this is one of my favorite looks, is the gray jersey, especially with the patches up, with the nationality, the flag of their country kind of thing. Like I really thought that was um a good thing for the university to do. And I love that they took that logo and put it on the home jersey because the fans really wanted it. And I love that the university is responding to their fan base and saying like let's amp their opinions. Um, I expect that they'll probably sell more jerseys this year than they have in past because I think the fans said we want this and they're going to show you with their hard-earned money that yeah that's what we like, right? My complaint about it is like I feel like it was the minimum, right? Like it was like the fans want this, let's just give them what they want and that's all we're going to do, right? And it's one of those missed opportunities. And I don't know, to be quite honest, like as a marketing guy, this might be like the one step that we could take this year, and there may be bigger things in the future because I could see me doing like sitting in their position, like this is probably what I would do, right? Like the fans want this, I put this on their jersey, we sell a bunch, and then I'm gonna make everyone mad here, but like then next season, what I do is I redesign all three of them, and we do a full new logo, and we go full rebrand, and we make a big splash of it. Like I think they could have done more with the jersey, and I don't know if it's just like they didn't have the money to do it, they didn't have the desire to do it, they didn't have the knowledge to do it, didn't like something was missing from the equation that they couldn't do it this season. Or if it was a known entity of them saying like we're just not going to go that far yet. But I do think that there's a little bit of a missed opportunity to really do a redesign. And you look at logos from some other teams, and AHL, NHL, even ECHL and stuff, like there's new textures, there's new designs, there's new capabilities with the way they design jerseys and stuff. And a lot of teams are doing redesigns last year, and then into this year I've seen a lot of teams kind of upping their game when it comes to that look and feel. And it bleeds into every other marketing piece that you're doing. We talked about the partnership with Lawlers and stuff. Like it bleeds into them and their ability to take a new logo, a new look, a new feel, a new edge, and amplify that with t-shirts and hoodies and hats and all that additional merchandise.
It would be cool to see them do kind of a full rethinking of the uniforms to give fans something fresh, because over the years we've changed things up a little bit. We've done different things with striping, different things with the home and the road jerseys. So I think that that would be interesting. Like you, I love the gray alternate jerseys. I love having the flag of the player's nationality on the shoulder. I think that that's really cool. I love the single black stripes on the sleeve and on the lower torso of the jersey. I think that that's great. Lawler's Custom Sportswear, who I will mention again, is our merchandise sponsor this season on the Mavpuckcast. We'll have replicas of these new white home jerseys at a later date. It'll be interesting to see if they unveil anything else interesting this season, like the military jerseys they did last season. Maybe a retro jersey. We will have to see what happens this season. I'm curious to see. This is a step in the right direction. So baby steps. I know some fans wanted something new, fresh, more exciting, but we're getting there.
John, do you really do you think they'll do that? Because we've talked about on the podcast the difference between, it's usually right around like one of the last home games of the year is when UNO does the Leap for a Cure partnership. And they've done jersey auctions and stuff, and that's been a thing that we've talked about on the podcast, right? And I can't remember if it's last season or not. I don't think it was last season. It was the season before. Is like you look at what the NHL does, and they do Hockey Fights Cancer, and there's a special jersey, and there's a lot of special jersey nights, military night, and things like that. Do you think that this is done so that they're better prepared or better set up to do something like that, where we see a Leap for a Cure partnership jersey that's only worn that night, or I know they've done military appreciation before. Do they do a camo jersey with the bull on the head and the nationality on it or something? Do you think the university's setting us up for that, or do you think it's just maybe they do it and maybe they don't, and it's not part of this update, we'll call it?
It's interesting that you asked that, and I'm curious after last season. I don't know. I hope maybe they are doing those things. I know they generated a lot of revenue on those two auctions, and Bridget and I got suckered into both. we thought the military auction, as we talked about on this podcast, was going to be the only special jersey auction last season, and then not long after that, they announced the Leap for a Cure, and we had to get one of the gray jerseys that the team wore. I hope maybe they're going that direction. I love the idea of special uniforms. I love it in college football throughout the season to see some of those unique uniforms that the teams wear. But one thing that I was going to mention on that is I don't know what the production schedules are for these jerseys, how soon in advance they have to get them. I also don't know, with Adidas getting out of the NHL contract with jerseys, I don't know how that's going to affect UNO getting that particular style of jersey, because UNO, obviously Adidas is our merchandise supplier, and they've been wearing the Adidas jersey like the NHL teams wear. I don't know how that's going to affect things in the future. So we'll see if this was just a temporary thing and they'll do a full-on redesign. There's all kinds of politics with hockey jerseys that you and I as fans have heard about for the past, many seasons when it comes to this program. So it will be interesting to see. But Jason, we have an exhibition coming up to start the season. It's going to be in Mankato, Minnesota, against the Minnesota State Mankato Mavericks, a team that there's been a lot of talk about over the past, decade or so. Mike Hastings did a great job with that program. Mike Hastings is no longer there. He's moved on to greener pastures at Wisconsin. Interesting to see if he turns that program around. Because it's an exhibition, Jason and I are not going to do predictions for this lone game. It's just, you never know what the coaching staff is going to do as it regards personnel for an exhibition, et cetera. It'll be interesting to see, but this will be this upcoming Saturday, October 7th, 6:07 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it on Flow Hockey, which is Jason's least favorite hockey streaming service because it's so expensive to get a month of it. We've had discussions about Flow Hockey on this podcast before.
Link to one of my rants on Flow Hockey, so I don't have to go through it again.
Yes, I can link to Jason rolling his eyes about Flow Hockey. Or you can listen to it here in Omaha on 1290 Coil. I will say that if you are listening to the radio broadcast, we have a new play-by-play man on the broadcast. Mike Valencourt will join Terry Leahy this season. Bridget and I got a chance to meet Mike at the open house. He's a seasoned veteran who's been calling hockey games for years. Seems like a really good guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does on the broadcast this season. I'm certainly looking forward to it. Any thoughts on the exhibition, Jason, or anything else we discussed in the podcast this week?
It'll be. I'm curious to see what the coaching staff does with UNO, who plays. That usually tells you like who's maybe nursing a little bit of an injury, maybe isn't healthy and ready to go quite yet. And so there'll be a lot of telltale signs kind of through some of that stuff just by the personnel that they choose and just what they're looking for, what the line combinations are. Like that's a big thing right now is you don't have a lot of guys that, you had stable lines last year that you're just bringing back the full three this year. I think there's going to be a lot of messing around and trying to find chemistry. And this is the game where you're going to see a lot of like, all right, let's just try this guy out there at a totally new position or something like that. So
yeah, you're absolutely right, Jason. I know you've talked a lot as we've analyzed this team over the past several seasons about team chemistry and finding those guys who click together and work well together. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if we see freshman Tanner Ludke in this game. He was not playing in the inter-squad scrimmage that we got to see at Baxter Arena during the open house. I'm excited to see how the guys perform this season. It's always fun to see how the guys look out there on the ice. Looking forward to seeing what the coaching staff does with the team this season. I will tell you that it was really rough getting through the podcast today. I have not talked on a video call with anybody since the season ended last year, Jason. So it's we're in preseason form, but we'll get back into it. As always, be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called this week. And you can find links to all of our social media channels at mavpuck.com. So until next time, Jason, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.